Well, after a long wait, the Volkswagen T-Roc finally arrived in Australia mid-last year, and now the lineup has been joined by the entry-level model, the 110 TSI, with a smaller 1.4 litre engine. But is it worth the $34,000 asking price? Let's find out. Even though it has a passing resemblance to the Audi Q2, this car actually has more in common with the Audi TT, sharing a similar platform. And I really like the design. I mean, it's conservative, but it's really clean and it looks great. I really like these driving lights that double as indicators. And I like the black highlights here on the rear vision mirrors and on the roof. It actually looks more premium than the more expensive sport model. The wheel design here on the alloys, I think, is also a bit sharper looking than the higher end model, plus the hockey stick that comes down the side here. It's a very nice little touch. And I really like this crease here that comes right into the back quarter panel, swooping around to the back here. All up, it's a very clean design, and I really like it. Under the hood, there's a 1.4 litre four-cylinder engine that outputs 110 kilowatts of power, hence the name 110, and 250 newton meters of torque. It gives you 6.2 litres per 100 kilometres fuel economy, drinks premium fuel and has an 8-speed gearbox and drives its power through the front wheels. This car was actually assembled in Poland, but it's fascinating looking through the engine bay and seeing where all the parts are actually made. I mean, in here I can see made in Spain, made in Czech Republic, made in Germany. It's a true international collaboration. The boot is actually a pretty good size for a subcompact SUV. There's 445 litres of space back here, and lower the rear seats, you get 1,290. At this point in the market, you do expect car interiors to have a lot of plastic, and that is certainly the case here, and it's everywhere, and it's hard and scratchy, and it's on the doors, and it's down low, it's up here on top. The steering wheel has stitching on it, but I'm pretty sure that this is not leather. The seat material is, well, probably not the most expensive you're ever going to find. Look, the seats are very comfortable, but the material is a little bit sort of harsh and scratchy. But overall, I cannot fault the build quality in here though. It's attractively designed and it's rock solid. Everything is really well built. There's no wobbling in the center console at all when I push it side to side. It's just well done, and this is something that is true of just about every German car I've reviewed, and it's something that other car makers could learn from. The dash design resembles the outgoing Golf 7.5 a little bit, which looks really good, but it is just a little bit dated. The center console screen is nice and big, it has sharp graphics and has all the functionality you'd expect, but it is missing a couple of key features like sat-nav, and there's also no digital radio either. But it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so that kind of makes up for those anyway. There's dual zone climate control, which is actually a nice surprise in a car in this entry-level spec. Moving down the dash here, we've got a couple of USB-C ports, which did mean that I had to go and buy myself a new iPhone cable to use it so I could use Apple CarPlay. The push button stop start, we've got the gear selector here, plus electronic park brake, a couple of very small cup holders, not quite big enough, and a very small little center console bin here as well. There's no electric adjustment for any of the seats in this car, it's all manual. There's lumbar support as well, which you can switch on and off with a lever here on the side, and there's actually a storage cubby under the seat here for the driver, which I discovered by accident because I was trying to adjust my seat, but I ended up pulling out this little drawer with a 1.5 kilo capacity instead. The lever for the seat is here on the left-hand side. The amount of room here in the back of this subcompact SUV, as expected, is quite small, especially for somebody as tall as me. I'm 190 centimeters, and behind my own seating position, my knees are hard up against the seat. I can't even get them close to being together. But there's quite a bit of headroom. I'm actually able to sit up quite straight in this car, which actually feels really good. We've got a couple of air vents here in the back, which is great for an entry-level car. 2 more USB-C ports for rear seat charging, and quite a comfortable armrest, and another one here in the middle as well with 2 cup holders. So look, I could handle a short trip in the back seat of this car, but really back here it's better for the kids. On the road, and it does the job really well actually. It's very easy to drive. It's comfortable, nothing amazing. You certainly feel the build quality all the way through. There's no rattles or squeaks or anything like that. The steering wheel in this car is also just a little bit on the thin side. I don't want something as thick and as bulky as a BMW steering wheel, but this one just could have a little bit more feel to it. And the same goes for the steering itself. It's just a little bit vague and wishy-washy, and there's a bit of understeer. There's just no feeling of the road through this wheel. And unfortunately, since this car has no drive modes, you can't even firm it up. There are no paddle shifters on this car, so if you want to change gears, you can still do it manually down here on the gear shifter, which is easy enough to do. And it changes gears when it feels like it, as opposed to when you want to. But in a car like this, you don't really need to use it.
But if you do happen to slip it into manual by accident, the engine noise will quickly let you know.
Oh, we're in manual. But as you can hear, the engine does get quite noisy up around the 3.5 to 4,000 rev range. The rear vision mirror, look, you can see everything you need to see out of it. It's just that it's very narrow and you really can only just see out the window. You can't see anything from the back seat at all, which, look, is probably the right thing to do, but I don't know, I'm used to them being a little bit bigger. Now, for a low-cost entry-level model, this car does have a couple of features which you don't even see in more expensive high-spec cars, like adaptive cruise control and automatic parking. The adaptive cruise control actually works really well. It brings the car to a full stop in traffic and will pull off again. You can set the distance you want to keep between you and the car in front of you. It's a little bit fiddly to use. It's not the easiest system in the world compared to, say, Tesla, which is seriously just one button push and the system's on. But after a few goes, you can figure it out. The T-Roc actually feels a little bit bigger than it is. It's driving alongside an Amarok here through the tunnel. You realise that, yeah, this is quite a small SUV. But I think part of the reason for that is that it's actually comparatively wide. It's about the same size as a Golf.
An annoying quirk of my test car was noisy brakes, especially when coming to a dead stop.
And you stop and there's that noise. And you take your foot off the brake. Oh, hang on. We can do a bit of this. Oh yeah. That noise from the brakes, not sure about that. Aside from being a little bit noisy, the brakes on this car are actually maybe a little bit overly sensitive because they feel like they're about to lock up sometimes when you just tap the brakes. I mean, of course they won't because of ABS, but it's just a little bit disconcerting. This car has analog dials on the instrument cluster with the digital screen in the middle showing the speed, and it's funny, I do not look at the analog dials at all. My eyes are instantly drawn towards the digital readout in the middle. It's funny how habits can change like that. There is a bit of body roll here on the bends as we get onto the freeway. But overall, the ride is actually pretty smooth. The suspension does a good job of gliding over most bumps in the road effortlessly. I'd say it's probably slightly on the firmer side of soft, but to be honest, it's pretty good. It's just sort of sitting in the middle. It's not too hard, not too soft. I haven't driven the sport model of the T-Roc yet, which has 140 kilowatts as opposed to this model's 110, but I have to say that this car's performance is just fine for around town. I mean, it does everything that you need it to do, nothing more than that, but it's good. Starting at $33,990, the Volkswagen T-Roc 110 TSI is fantastic value for money, but it just feels a little bit too bare bones to be appealing to anybody except an accountant. I'm just not really sure who this car is being marketed to. Personally, I'd be ponying up a little bit of extra cash and having a serious look at the slightly more luxe and bigger engined Volkswagen T-Roc 140 TSI.